I'm starting with 4 square tubes to make the corner posts, and another 4 square tubes placed horizontally at the front and back, end caps for the corner posts. The welds didn't turn out great, so I'll grind them down. I'll cut square tubes to connect the front to the back. I lightly sanded the square tubes. Now I just need to join them all together. I will start with the front side. I need to keep the right angles, otherwise the whole process will get complicated. Each square tube is welded from all sides, step by step. Some welds need to be ground down for further joints. I will weld the square tubes to the front to connect it to the back. I will check with a tape measure that the gap between square tubes is the same at the top and bottom. The connecting rectangular tubes at the bottom don't need to be robust and won't be visible, so they won't spoil the look. Just need to weld the rear side of the frame. One of the side square tubes bent inwards. A few hammer blows will straighten it. I will just grind down the welds and the frame is done. I will cut smaller flat bars and weld them underneath each corner. So the cart sits on the whole wheelbase. For attaching the wheels, I'll use a threaded rod. Each threaded rod is welded so it doesn't turn. I seat and fix the wheels with nuts. I will cut a flat bar to hold the rail for the first drawer. And do the same on the other side. Mark, drill and tap threads for screws. Now I will make the front panel for the first drawer. Bending the lower edge strengthens the panel and removes the sharp edge. I do this by clamping the sheet metal between two thick flat bars. Flip the sheet and hammer the edge flat. Prepare the sheets for the sides of the drawer. The bottom edge will be bent to a right angle for attachment to the drawer bottom. Bending the top edge removes the sharp edge and increases strength. The top edge also needs hammering. This bend connects to the drawer front, and this one to the rear part of the drawer. I will measure and cut left and right angles for the drawer frame. The cut angles are attached to the rails, then I make the rest of the frame according to their spacing. So the drawer frame isn't too wide. I padded the left angle temporarily with 1mm shims. Then I weld the front and back of the drawer frame. Pull out the part of the rails that goes on the drawer. Trace and drill holes for screws. The angle had to withstand weather for a while, so I treated it with rust remover, hence the color. Fit the drawer front so the gaps are equal all around. and weld it to the drawer frame. Fit the drawer sides. But first I have to trim them a bit because the front frame gets in the way. Prepare the bottom and back of the drawer. And again, bend the top and bottom edges to right angles. And hammer the top edge. Drill holes around the inner edge for plug welding the sheets to the frame. And weld the sheets together in a few places. And continue with the next drawer. Cutting will be done the same as before. The bends will also be the same. I will cut flat bars to make a divider. To divide the bottom part of the card into two columns, the top and bottom spacing must be equal. I will weld a flat bar to hold the divider. And now I realize I welded the divider the wrong way. So I cut it off, flip it, and weld it again. Now it is correct. I will weld on flat bars for the rails. Add more flat bars to the divider to increase strength. Install the rails. And move on to making more drawers. Bend them into the correct shapes. Check for the same gap size everywhere. And tack the fronts onto the frames. Weld the remaining flat bars under the rails. I have cut frames for all the remaining drawers. And prepared the sheet metal. And then bent them. And gradually assembled the rest of the drawers. Now I will move on to the locking mechanism. Drill a hole for the lock. I will use a milling bit as well as a drill bit. Drill a hole for the screw that will hold the lock. The lock tab is not needed, so I will cut it off. I need the lock to only turn if keys are inserted from both sides. I achieved this with this weld. The inside key needs some modification, its size blocks rotation. The turning motion will go to a round bar, which is screwed onto the inside key. I will tap a thread and screw the key to the round bar. I 3D printed a sliding bearing out of nylon. When closing the top drawer, I noticed it hits the lock. A smaller hole in the drawer solves this issue. I prepared material for mounting the lock mechanism. The main part of the locking mechanism will be this flat bar. It must be smooth to prevent jamming during movement. This flat bar will move in these holders. Each holder is secured with 2 screws. So I drill 6 holes and tap them. The top part of the locking mechanism will have 4 threaded holes for screws. The round bar from the lock must also have 4 threaded holes for screws, and 4 more for passing cables through. Now it's possible to estimate where the bearing holder should be welded. Sharp edges of the holes for the cable need to be smooth. The cable could bend sharply and break there. 2 cables will go through one side of the bar and the other 2 through the opposite side. This setup lets you lock in both directions. The first 2 cables are steel, the other 2 will be fishing line. Now I'll attach the latch of the first drawer to the locking mechanism. And attach the catch to the back side of the drawer. All the material cut for the remaining latches and catches of the locking mechanism. Just below the second drawer is the mount for the whole locking mechanism. So I have to weld the catch higher above the drawer frame. That's why I add a flat bar to the drawer to hold the catch. There were no such complications with the other drawers. So far it works perfectly even without any lubricant. I will clean the C profiles which have been out in the rain and use them as drawer handles. I'll treat them with rust remover and let it work. I will align the drawer fronts. And weld them from the inside to their side sheets. I got lost in thought here and did continuous welds instead of tacks, so the drawer front warped a bit. Rust remover can be wiped off with a cloth after 24 hours. I'll make a few holes to tack the handle onto the drawer front. And attach the handles to the rest of the drawers the same way. End caps for the sides of the handles. I will cut and sand rectangular tubes to make the welding table. I will space the rectangular tubes with large nuts, then weld them together. The nuts ensure even gaps and the ability to clamp jigs later. From this material, I'll make mounting holes for a vise and bender. I will make 7 of these holders in total. 3 in front and 2 on each side of the cart. Each holder will have 2 holes for clamping screws. I will tap threads in each hole. Now I will make a stand for the vise out of these holders. The flat bar isn't wide enough, so I'll have to widen it a bit with another piece. I will check that the leg is parallel before welding it. I will drill 4 holes for mounting the vise. And tap them. Done. Next, I will make a bracket for the welding table. I will drill 4 holes in 2 flat bars. Then I will make a copy of each. The holes didn't line up perfectly, so I have to copy them this way. Finally, I countersink 3 holes in each pair for countersunk screws. I weld the ones without countersunk holes onto the frame. Weld them securely from all sides. Deepen the screw holes right into the corner square tubes. And tap the threads. Screw the holders on. Then drill large holes for mounting the table. I will trim the table sides so they don't interfere with the holders. I will cut the screws to length and weld them to the table. Add a rectangular tube to fill the gap between the screw. To lock the table, I will make a leg for it. But first I'll make a holder to clamp the leg in. I will drill a hole in the leg for a locking pin. I will align the table with a protractor to make sure it's at a right angle to the cart. Weld a rectangular tube to the top of the leg. And then 2 smaller ones to go through the gaps in the table. Clean the leg so it's ready for painting. The table hangs from a hinge on the cart so it can swing. To prevent this, I'll make a holder for it from a tube. I will make a locking pin from a bolt and drill a hole in it so it can be secured. I realized the round bar with the key controlling the lock mechanism could fall out of the lock. So I decided to add a stop from an angle bar. And I also decided to add springs to push the mechanism down. This reduces the chance of jamming, which is my nightmare. I wouldn't be able to open the cart. Now it's time to panel the cart. I'll remove all drawers and the welding table. Grind down the screws holding the rail so they don't stick out from the bars. Constant grinding and cutting clogged up the rails. I'll have to clean them later. But for now, I'll remove them all so they're not in the way. I will also remove the lock mechanism and grind the whole frame. It would be too difficult later. I will start with the sheet for the bottom of the cart. Clamp it with 2 wooden slats and clamps, then tack weld it. Next, I'll tack weld the sheet to the back of the cart. Magnets, wooden slats, and clamps are currently my best friends. Now I'll attach the sheet to the side by the welding table. Tack weld all around, spot by spot. And do the same on the last side. Reinforce the divider mount with another flat bar. Add a flat bar to the rear mount as well. And place the last top sheet. Check that it's installed at the same depth all around. Tack weld it spot by spot. I will use automotive adhesive around the bottom sheet since I had some left from another project. The paneling is done, now I'll prepare the board holders. The board will go under the top sheet to reinforce it. Drill holes and tap threads. Screw the holders in place to check if I made the holes right. The wooden board will be made later. This side of the cart won't stay empty either. I'll add an extension cord with power sockets. I will drill 4 holes for the cable holder, which I'll 3D print later. I forgot to tack weld the rear sheet around the edge, so I'm fixing that now. Clean all the welds. I turned the table over and now I'm removing the wheels. I will screw a chain onto the threaded rods that held the wheels. And lift the cart with a chain hoist. Degrease. Prepare the epoxy primer. Hardener. Thinner. I have a spray gun with a 1.3mm nozzle, but even with thin epoxy paint, that's not enough. On top of that, the compressor stopped building pressure and wouldn't shut off. The repair video is now on my channel. I put a link in the description. Spraying worked out in the end. The paint ran in a few places, so I'll sand it down. Now I will prepare the top polyurethane paint. I don't want a smooth surface, so I'll use a roller. That hides small imperfections. I started with the cart bottom so I could install the wheels after drying and move it more easily. I applied 2 coats of paint everywhere. The red paint is dry. In some spots I taped it to avoid painting over or splattering it. Removed the rails from the drawers and reinforced them with a few more welds. And fixed bent fronts where I welded instead of just tacking. I leveled the fronts with a square and tacked them. Sanded and cleaned the drawers with a steel brush. Frames that were rusty got another coat of rust remover. In the end, I brushed all the drawers with rust remover because it was splattering a lot. Honestly, I'm not sure if it was a good idea. Hopefully the paint will stick for a few years. I will wipe the rust remover with a rag and start applying the epoxy primer. This time I found it easier to use a roller than struggle with the small spray gun nozzle. Next, 2 coats of polyurethane paint. Again, 2 coats for the handles. I use a brush because a roller wouldn't fit inside. Cleaned the dirty rails with mineral spirits. I coated the lock mechanism with oil-based anti-corrosion solution and started reassembling the cart. I wrapped the lock mechanism in rags to avoid scratching the paint while installing it. Greased all moving parts with grease. Installed the cables, ended up using 4 steel ones. Fishing line didn't work well. Testing the lock mechanism in both directions. Reinstalled all rails on the drawers. Swapped the wheels for red-black ones. Installed a power socket and a cable holder printed on a 3D printer. Treated the table with protective anti-corrosion solution for welding tables. Installed the brackets and put the table in place. Coated the locking jig with the same solution as the welding table and placed it in position. Sawed a board to reinforce the top sheet of the cart. I painted the board holders too. Put the board in place and secured it with the holders. Oiled the lock mechanism one more time. Put all drawers back in the cart. The wooden board really reinforced the top. I'll put a rubber mat on it to protect it from scratches. Clamp on the vise holder. And install the vise. All the screws are new. Greased it with grease. Done. Now let's take a closer look at the result. I realized that when welding on the table, sparks will hit the cart and damage the paint. So as an improvement, I'll add a fireproof board, but that's for next time.